Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Kristen Welker in New York as another major midterm matchup is set after last night's dramatic results out of Texas, where Attorney General Ken Paxton delivered a Texas-sized drubbing over Republican Senator John Cornyn, trouncing the four-term incumbent by nearly 30 points in the Senate primary runoff. The result sets up a combative general election showdown with the Democratic candidate, State Representative James Tallarico. Paxton's runaway victory also further solidifying the president's grip over the Republican Party, as Senator Cornyn becomes the latest victim of the president's mission to snuff out perceived disloyalty inside the party. In his victory speech last night, the Attorney General praising the powers of the president's endorsement.
When everyone in Washington told him to abandon me and abandon the people of Texas, he didn't listen. Instead, he gave his complete and total endorsement. President Trump is the leader of our party, and his endorsement in this is the most powerful force in politics.
Paxton also thanking Cornyn for his long career after a bruising primary campaign that saw Senator Cornyn attack the Attorney General for a slate of controversies, including his impeachment by the state's Republican legislature. In his concession speech, Senator Cornyn told his supporters he was disappointed by the result, but said he will support Paxton in November.
Those who show up decide for those who do not. There's a simple rule in elections, you've heard me say it before, and that is the candidate who gets the most votes wins. The party in the majority gets to govern, and my hope is to keep my party in power for generations. And I've always supported the Republican ticket, and I intend to do so again in this general election.
Now all attention turns to the general election, which is already off to a contentious and bitter start. President Trump slamming Tallarico on social media today as a, quote, dumb-ocrat who is, quote, weak on crime after Paxton weaved a string of mocking nicknames through his victory speech last night.
My opponent is the most extreme radical the Democrats have ever nominated. Some people know him as Tofu Tallarico. Some people call him six-gender Jimmy. I've even heard some people call him James Tallarico. And others refer to him simply as Low T Tallarico. But no matter what you call him, let me tell you this, James Tallarico is a threat to everything we hold dear in this state and in this country.
Tallarico responding with his own attacks against Paxton while also trying to distance himself from past comments on hot-button cultural issues. Here's what he told my NBC colleague Ryan Chandler earlier today.
Ken Paxton is the most corrupt politician in America. He is abnormal. His crimes are egregious. And he is everything that's wrong with our broken system. I'll be the first to admit that I missed the mark on some of those old statements. But what Ken Paxton is doing is clipping my cringy comments to distract from his career of corruption. Ken Paxton has a criminal record. I have a legislative record. So while he tries to divide us with the same old, tired culture war fights, I'm going to keep bringing Texans together to tackle corruption and lower our costs.
Now, here are the stakes, folks. Democrats haven't won a statewide race in Texas in more than 30 years. But after last night, our friends at the Cook Political Report moved the race in Democrats' direction from likely Republican to lean Republican. Joining me now from the White House is NBC's Monica Alba. Steve Kornacki is breaking down last night's results at the big board. Also with us, Phil Prazan, reporter and co-anchor of Lone Star Politics on our Dallas-Fort Worth affiliate, and Jessica Taylor, Senate and Governor's editor at the Cook Political Report. Thanks to all of you for starting us off. There is so much to unpack in this Texas-sized story. Monica, I have to start with you at the White House. This is the third Trump target to lose their primary in just the last week, and the second senator. So take us inside your conversations inside the West Wing. What is the strategy moving forward here, Mon?
Well, look, Kristen, the White House is completely emboldened by this, as is President Trump, buoyed by that victory, where they feel that the decisions that the president is making, his so-called revenge tour, is working, and that even if this is something where they are seeing a short-term gain, where they're seeing these victories of Trump-backed candidates in the short term, even if that raises questions about what that could mean for November, that they feel very good about this strategy, that they have really double and tripled down on it and continue to own it. The president was asked about that earlier today in the cabinet meeting, and he said that this was a tremendous victory, that he was thrilled for this, and really did speak about this in terms that he feels that if he backs someone, that they are kind of unstoppable. Again, that will be a whole new test in the actual general election to come, in the actual overall midterms. But something else that's raising a lot of eyebrows were his overall comments about the midterms today, Kristen, when the president said, I don't care about the midterms in terms of Iran specifically, even though we know a lot of voters could feel pretty differently when they head to the polls. Kristen.
No doubt about that, Monica. Those comments will likely get a lot of attention and traction throughout the course of the midterms. I do want to ask you, Monica, what you are anticipating seeing from this president based on your reporting. He's already committed significant time and resources to the primaries. Do you anticipate that that's what folks will see in the general election as well?
It does seem that way. He wrote on his social media platform that he would be holding big rallies for Ken Paxton in the fall. So we do expect he will be traveling at some point. Whether he's going to be doing that for all of the candidates that he has put his support behind is a little bit unclear. Remember that earlier this year, the White House had sort of expected the president to be traveling domestically about once a week, but then the war against Iran started, and that has shifted that kind of domestic travel and priorities a little bit. So we'll see if that changes, but the White House and the president indicating it will ramp up closer to November.
And Monica, I have to ask you about this YOLO caucus, you only live once caucus, these senators, members of Congress who've been ousted by President Trump. Are they worried about that, Senator Cornyn potentially joining that caucus and blocking President Trump's legislative priorities?
Yeah, because we've already seen examples of that in the last couple of weeks with Senator Cassidy, of course, of Louisiana, who did join some Democrats on that war powers resolution, for instance. But specifically with Senator Cornyn, it's interesting because the language that the president used was pretty actually he praised him. He was pretty kind compared to some of the other comments he has made about Republicans like Senator Cassidy or Congressman Thomas Massie that he has worked to oust. So specifically with Senator Cornyn, he said that he has had a very long, strong, and truly great career. He sort of thanked him and said he will, quote, remain my friend for a long time to come, which also raises questions about whether the president sort of feels like he needs him more on his side in the coming months as he finishes out his term. Kristen.
Monica Alba starting us off at the White House. Monica, thank you so much for your great reporting as always. Steve, let me turn to you. You're at the big board there. Take us inside the numbers. Paxton just dominated this runoff, bigger than I think a lot of people were actually anticipating. How did he do it? And was the Trump endorsement the thing that made the difference, or did it just push him up even more?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, pardon me, Kristen, I think it's the margin here in particular, obviously, nearly 30 points. Pardon me, I apologize for that. Nearly 30 points here for Paxton over Cornyn. And you look at this, remember, the preliminary, when these two candidates faced off initially, this is what it looked like. Cornyn got the most votes. Cornyn actually finished first in the preliminary. So this was a massive, massive shift from the preliminary at the start of March to this. Now, you can look at these results and say, I think even without that Trump win, you could make a case on these without that Trump endorsement. You could make a case Paxton was going to win. Why do I say that? It's because the way Texas reports its vote out last night, they report the early vote out first in all these counties. And what we were seeing when they reported out that early vote was massive Paxton margins. They weren't quite as big as his vote was with the election day vote, but he was winning the early vote overwhelmingly. And why is that key? Because a lot of that early vote, not all of it, but a significant chunk of that early vote was actually cast before Donald Trump made his endorsement, about a week out before this runoff. So I think there's some indications when you look at that early vote that Paxton was already starting to run away with this thing. But that Trump endorsement, again, probably pushed this thing up more than it would have been, nearly 30 points. You do not see incumbent senators lose primaries every day. You especially don't see them lose by this kind of margin every day.
Well, it's just fascinating to go inside the numbers. And that early vote, Steve, which, as you say, is critical. And of course, your voice is scratchy. You were broadcasting all night long. We would expect nothing less of you. Let me ask you about turnout, because it was, relatively speaking, fairly light. Is it possible that Paxton may have reached his ceiling? What are you going to be watching for in the general based on what you saw last night?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think there's the concern that some Republican leaders expressed about Paxton's electability. One thing you'd look at this, you'd say Republican voters themselves don't seem that concerned with it. That was the entire message from Cornyn in the stretch of this campaign to Republican voters was, if you nominate Paxton, you're putting this seat, you know, at risk here. You're giving the Democrats a chance to win a statewide race in Texas. When you see a margin like this, clearly Republican voters themselves don't seem to share that sentiment too much. Look, ultimately, you know, you could talk about where this race stands sort of in ratings and everything, but as you say, it has been 32 years since a Democrat won a statewide race in Texas. So while there are some fissures in this party right now, obviously, you know, coming out of this, there were some harsh words exchanged and everything. The idea of being the Republican in Texas running against a Democrat has been an extremely reliable formula now for decades, really a generation. So that's what Democrats are up against, and that's what Paxton's going to be relying on here as he tries to unite the party coming out of this.
Well, we're going to be watching every twist and turn right along with you, Steve. Thank you so much. Phil, let me head out to you in Dallas. We have to start with the Senate race, right where I left off with Steve. Ken Paxton, James Tallarico, you just heard Steve talking about this. We can't say it enough. A Democrat hasn't won this seat in more than 30 years. It's been the white whale, the great white whale for Democrats. Has that now changed? Is Texas now in play?
Let me put it to you like this, Kristen. I mean, Texas is a Republican state until proven otherwise, but I'll make a movie reference that you make. You know Philadelphia. Right now, we are in the first Rocky 1. James Tallarico can go the distance. It will. it is my favorite as well. But James Tallarico can go the distance. It is possible. There is a path for him to win. I know this because there was a big gathering of Republican data gurus and data experts. They have someone nicknamed a nerd summit about a week and a half ago, where they looked at the numbers and then they told their Republican bosses, you know, the governor, speaker of the House, lieutenant governor, what the situation is. And the environment is so bad for Republicans right now, even in Texas, with how the economy is, how people feel about the economy, and then the president's approval rating. Even in Texas, it is possible that a Democrat can win statewide. But for that to happen, this needs to be Rocky 2, and then that path goes through the Cornyn voters, those independent and moderate Republicans that usually vote Republican that may be convinced to not vote for Ken Paxton. And we've talked about this before, Kristen. The closest thing they've come to this was in 2018 with Beto O'Rourke, where 400,000 Texans voted for the Democrat Beto O'Rourke and Governor Greg Abbott, the Republican. So Tallarico needs to get that population back and then more some. So it is a challenge, but it is possible.
I anticipate they are studying the O'Rourke playbook as we speak. Phil, let me ask you, because what we are seeing so far, this is day one, is some really ugly rhetoric back and forth. Just how bitter are you anticipating this campaign's going to get, Phil?
It is going to be pretty nasty. I mean, already you're seeing there are already kind of negative feelings about Ken Paxton from $100 million from John Cornyn, right? But what you're going to see from Tallarico and his team, they're going to try and connect people's feelings about corruption in Washington and corruption in Austin to their higher gas prices, to their higher cost of living. And, you know, you even see today Tallarico calling Ken Paxton part of the Epstein class. That's the first time I've heard him use those words regarding Ken Paxton. So they are going to try and make the argument that your life is worse because they're corrupt. And Ken Paxton, Republicans have given them a lot of ammunition by beating up Ken Paxton so much. In response, you're already seeing it. You're going to see the nicknames. You're going to see the Republicans try and frame Tallarico as just out of touch with Texans, and that worked in 2024, especially on the transgender issue. They really hit Colin Allred hard on that and made him look kind of out of touch with the majority of Texans. The big question, though, is will Texans put up with what they did in 2024 and 2026? Will those attacks on his past transgender and race comments, will they be as powerful when gas prices are so high? They have an argument to make. They've been successful at that in the past, and I guess we're going to have to find out if it works yet again.
Well, it's a great question, a great series of questions, Phil. Let me ask you very quickly. Democrats in the Texas 35th District rejecting Maureen Galindo. She had been under fire for anti-Semitic remarks. Their nominee, Johnny Garcia, set to face off against Carlos de la Cruz. How do you see this playing out? Could Democrats be competitive in this district, Phil?
It is. It is one of the districts that Republicans designed to win, but they used a lot of those 2024 presidential numbers. And it's just going to be a different situation here in 2026. So right now it performs about 55%. Designed for a Republican to win with 55% of the vote. But that was back in 2024. If there's a 5 or 6 point difference or different environment, then yes, a Democrat can pick that seat up. Also, probably another 1 or 2 in the Valley. Republicans will still come out on top because they changed 5 seats around to theoretically go Republican. But Democrats may win 1, 2, maybe 3, but then we're getting kind of pushing it.
All right. Well, Phil, we're going to watch it right along with you. And of course, I get to talk to you every Friday. Thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate it. Jessica, let me turn to you. Thank you so much for being here. For people who love politics, we hang on every single word of the Cook Political Report. So let's talk about this rating change, likely Republican to lean Republican. Explain why that's so significant.
Well, I mean, a lot of this is Republicans, national Republicans, even before this race was over, saying that Ken Paxton was going to cost them perhaps $200 to $250 million to try to save this race, that they saw him as the weaker nominee than John Cornyn. And basically, we agreed. But notably, as Phil was talking about, this is still not an easy race for Democrats, even with a lot of things in the environment that they got the weaker candidate rather than John Cornyn. We still see Ken Paxton as having an advantage. Now, it's a narrower advantage than I think someone like Cornyn would have had. But that's why the race is in lean Republican, and it's not yet in the toss-up column. But if some of these attacks on Tallarico that we're already seeing today, if they don't stick, if gas prices get even higher, if Donald Trump's approval rating gets even lower in Texas, this race could absolutely come more online and could move into the toss-up column.
Well, and it's put Republicans in a little bit of a tough spot, of course. For example, the Republican Senate Campaign Committee campaigned on behalf of Senator Cornyn. They've had some sharp attacks against Paxton. What will this look like in a general election? They've basically laid the groundwork for Tallarico to take all of this material and throw it back in Paxton's face.
Yeah, you actually had the National Republican Senatorial Committee that is, made light of Ken Paxton's divorces, or his divorce, his infidelity, his impeachment and different things. They were deleting press releases off of their site last night where they had attacked Paxton. They've got to work with him. He's got to mend fences with leader John Thune. Axios is reporting that the two will meet soon, that there is an outreach there. But John Cornyn is a very well-liked member of the caucus. But this is a seat that they've got to save come November. I think the most important impact that I see is, again, with the money. Where is that money going to come from? Is it going to come from other races that they would like to put into play, like a Minnesota or a New Hampshire, perhaps even a Georgia, that they really needed to put into play in order to gain seats or even just to defend seats? I think this is just a real pickle that they're in. It might have to come from sort of the president's super PAC as well. Some of it, you broke it, you bought it in a way.
So, Jessica, big picture, what does this mean for the map overall as we watch these midterms unfold?
everything still has to go right for Democrats in order for them to get the 4 seats, but this is only good news for Democrats as they do try to pick up the Senate, which is still significantly harder than the House math.
All right. Well, we appreciate your analysis very much. Jessica, thank you so much.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.